Okay.
Hey, Matt.
Good morning. Afternoon.
Good
Yes, good
morning.
afternoon.
I don't know, whatever. Who cares? Does time really matter at this point?
What is time?
Melanie, I'm so sorry. I saw a waiting room, but I only saw 3 people. So I was like, okay. Didn't realize there's a lot of people in it, and I just needed to scroll. So I apologize because I was trying to. We had a little bit.
I just got on because of the many children I have, so no big deal. I'm good.
Well, I'm giving. We have about just on. Actually, no, we do have 61 people registered.
Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give a few minutes for people to come on, and then we'll start introductions in about 2-3 minutes, and then we'll get going.
Fantastic.
So if everybody, as they're coming on, if you can put yourself on mute to start with, that'd be great, and we'll be starting very shortly. Get yourself comfortable. Find a nice position to sit in.
I'm very tired of sitting in this position on Zoom calls all day.
What you really need to have is TVs on like a monitor and a camera on the ceiling, so you can lie down and just. Of course, we'd have to call that ZZZ.
Oh, wow!
Yeah, that's
the helpful tips. Stay for the comedy.
That's right. Oh, the comedy. Matt's all full of comedy with dad jokes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, have you seen, okay, so since COVID on Instagram, like they just try and sell me everything, right? Because, hey, it's boredom, right? People are in anxious states. Let's do some spending. And there's a projector, Matt, that you might be interested in on one of those IG ads that projects up to the ceiling. So we can make your dreams come true for $29.95 and some Ginsu knives.
You win some, you gain some.
That's right.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Matthew Dever. I'm going to be hosting this panel on mental health, and we have 3 amazing panelists who will be able to answer some questions and get into a good discussion on how we can help parents manage our own anxieties as well as managing the anxiety of our kids and those that we're looking after. So just going to start off a couple things before I go into introductions. This panel is being recorded, and it's going to be made available on my website, matthewdever.ca, and I'll be putting it out through the social networks over the next day or so. I'm hoping tomorrow, but I have kids as well. We're going to begin with some introductions and moderated questions, and then the audience will have an opportunity to ask any questions that they'd like. If you want to ask a question, please post it in the chat window, and if you want to ask the question personally, just letting me know that. Those who ask personally will be part of the recording. So if you would like to ask the question directly, say that. Otherwise, I'll ask the question for you. And only those who ask the questions directly will be in the end recording that will be posted publicly. Please ensure your mic is on mute during this time until I give you an opportunity to ask your question. And the panel will last 1 hour. However, if any of the panelists wish to stay on past 2 o'clock, we'll have a second Q&A session that will be open until the panelists need to go. And the panelists' contact information will be sent in a follow-up email tomorrow with a little bit of a survey to see how this went. So I will start off briefly myself. My name is Matthew Dever. I'm an autistic father of 5 kids. Three of which are also autistic. I have a tween, a teen, and an adult who are autistic and all over the spectrum. And so it's a fun house. I've been involved in advocacy most of my life. It's been autism focused for the last 17 years. I sat on the Ontario Autism Program advisory panel last summer, and I'm currently now working with the Ontario Autism Program's implementation working group. I'm the Director of Outreach for Autism Advocacy Ontario. I'm the founder of Autistic Bridge Ontario, and I'm a director with HACO. All right, so I'm going to start introducing the panelists, and I'm going to start with Dori Zener.
Hi, everybody. Very nice to be here this afternoon. As Matthew mentioned, my name is Dori Zener. I'm a social worker by training. I provide individual, couple, and family therapy to people on the autism spectrum and their loved ones. And also the director of Dori Zener and Associates, which is a group of mental health professionals that provides strength-based, person-centered therapy to people across the lifespan. And I'm looking forward to today's discussion to see how we can all work together to help support your mental health and the mental health of your children.
Thank you, Dori. Next, we have Janet Greener. Go ahead, Janet.
Unmute. I'll start by unmuting. Hi, I'm Janet Greener. I have worn a lot of hats over the years. I've been an instructor therapist, a teacher, pretty much everything that could do with special needs. You name it, I do it. I have a sister with Down syndrome. All my best friends have autism. And most recently, I have a center in Cambridge that is for adolescents who need alternative schooling or an atmosphere for mental wellness and a safe space. So once COVID is done, we will be opening our doors, but we are currently offering virtual support to families. I take outside the box sort of approach to everything. I've done a lot of learning over the years, and families and parents are, and those who are struggling are my best teachers. So my perspective is sort of from the front lines, and I just keep learning and keep sharing and keep growing.
Thank you, Janet. And finally, we have Dr. Melanie Penner.
Hi, everyone. My name is Melanie Penner. I'm a developmental pediatrician at Holland Bloorview Kids Rehabilitation Hospital. I work in the autism program there, so I do a lot of autism diagnosis, and then I also have a psychopharmacology clinic where we see kids with various neurodevelopmental disorders, including autism, who have some more complex challenges and often require medication to help with those. I am also a researcher, so I do health services research, thinking about how we can kind of best organize and deliver services to meet the needs of autistic kids and their families. And I love Janet's last part about, kids, families, autistic adults have been my best teachers along this journey. I may be hoping to pick up some tips for my own family today.
Thank you, Melanie. So we have Zener, Greener, and Penner, and Dever. Yes. All right. So I thank all of you who've registered. I asked a question of what you're hoping to get out of this this panel. We have a lot of professionals. We have some parents and some educators on here, and so I used those things to help address some of the questions that we're going to start with. And the first one I get asked a lot: how do we talk to our kids about coronavirus and the reasons behind this isolation that we're in? Dori, you want to start?
Sure. I think the most important thing is to be honest, be clear, and keep it simple. So we talk about that we want to keep everybody safe, and we want to stay healthy, and we need to keep our distance so that we stay safe and protect both ourselves and other people. The reason why we're staying home is because if we can stay inside our homes, then we're not spreading this virus from person to person. So again, just really honest, simple, and clear language is my recommendation.
Yeah, maybe I can jump on to that as well. What I love about what Dori said is that it's really focused on what we can help to do. I think this has been a time where a lot of parts of our lives feel a bit out of control. And so I like framing it as an action that we're taking that's going to help keep ourselves safe and help keep everyone else safe as well. There are some visuals that have been made. So I've seen a coronavirus book for kids. I think there are quite a few that are circulating now. So if your child does better with visuals, it can be nice to help support that message. The other thing I would mention here is that kids are learning about coronavirus from the conversations that you're having that are not to them, but that they're overhearing. And so being really careful about those conversations. And I've had to watch this in my household as well. I think those are the times that can really get scary for kids when they feel like there are parts of this that you're not explaining to them.
Yeah, Melanie, you nailed it. That's what I was going to say too. Is I take an approach where if they can understand it and they're following the conversation, I'll give them all the facts about viruses and how they work, and if we want to, look it up and see how it's spread, and then reflect on what our community is specifically doing, and that's why we're not going to school and that's why we're not going out, but also very mindful of how I speak to my partner about it, what they overhear on the news, sort of even just my vibe and my stress when talking about it. They can feel it even if they're not technically paying attention to what I'm saying. They're feeling it and always listening, always listening. So the walls have ears. That's what we've been saying around here, is that the walls have ears, and we have to make sure that if we are talking about it, that in a sort of concerned manner, not that we're hiding any of the negative information, but as adults, we deal with different aspects of it than the kids, and they're going to hang on to the way we feel, which I think we'll talk a lot about today, is controlling our own emotions or maintaining our own emotions in order to sort of give out a calm sort of vibe to the family and everyone in the house.
Thank you. One of the things that parents are asking a lot about is how do they keep their own mental health in check during these times? There's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of uncertainty, and things are changing often. How do we, in this time of isolation, check ourselves? Melanie, do you want to start?
No. I mean, I think recognizing that this is a big, scary, traumatic thing that's happened to all of us. And some of that requires that you take some time to process it yourself. Whenever that happens to be, whenever you get those moments to do that, if you need time to kind of slip into your bedroom and have a big cry or something like that, I think these emotions that you're having are real, they're expected. And I think the tricky part as parents is to be finding that balance of when do you kind of take that time that you need to take in the way that you need to take it, versus, what are you kind of projecting to your children that's going to make them feel safe and secure, as much as sort of is possible in this. I would say that it's like with many kind of stressors to family dynamics, this is easier to cope with depending on how much sort of resource you have as a family. So if you are in a family where you have two caregivers there, then you can try to spot each other off, look out for each other's needs. What do you need right now? Do you need to go take some time to read a book? Definitely more challenging here for single parents who are kind of the main person responsible for that. So I think finding ways to create respite at home is something I've been talking about with families. So what are the activities that are going to keep your child occupied so that you can take a minute, take a breath, and know that it's okay not to feel okay?
I'm going to agree with Melanie on all those. The dynamics change really hard. I'm sorry. I was saying two things at once. Someone's knocking really hard on my door. The dynamics change for every family. It's very specific. Just to throw some things out there, I've got 4 kids at home. I'm trying to work. I called my partner home so I could do this without distractions. But what I have done is in my son's room, I have blown up an air mattress, and he's got his mattress, and I've sort of removed all other furniture. And what I have done is found books that children's books, but not a little bit more advanced than they would, but a good story. I know where you actually picked Harry Potter because it makes me feel better. And I sit in front of the closed doors. They can do whatever they want in the room, and I just read. I read for as long as possible. They know we sort of started this habit of, they can run around the room, they can do whatever they want, they can bounce all over. And I'm just going to, in my calmest voice and with enthusiasm, read until I feel better. And I've noticed the room has calmed down. It can take a long time and it can take some practice, but just reading aloud with no expectations from your kids in a room that they're safe and they can move around is just sort of one thing I've personally done to break up the day. Music also really helps. I've picked a special song with each kid that I scoop them up and we have a moment to reconnect. It's forcing me to sort of calm myself down, but then they have that little moment with me. So I have to sort of structure these things through the day. It also could be again, screens. Screens help sometimes. And if I have to put one in each room and separate them, then that's what I'm doing. I'm in a similar boat where we don't know what we're supposed to do right now. We have a lot of pressure on ourselves, and we put an enormous amount of pressure on ourselves, more so than everyone else is. So I think just staying in tune with ourselves and trying to create a sense of calm, even if you don't accomplish a thing. It's okay. There's nobody's going to come over and see your dirty, messy house. Nobody is, because we're not allowed. So that's how I am okay with not running the dishwasher every day or leaving the dirty dishes in the sink. That we have to go with what each day, and every 5 minutes. I even say that, like, oh, I got through those 5 more minutes. I got through those 5 more minutes. If I can read to my kids for an hour and they're okay, I gave them an entire hour of me today. That means that I can, take that 5 minutes to scroll my phone when they happen to be on their screens, or do what I need to do. There's a lot of guilt, guys, going around, and trust me, we all feel it, which is why we're here for you. I can go on and on.
I can add a little bit to this discussion. Both of what Melanie and Janet have been talking about are things that I'm thinking about in my own life and seeing with the clients that I work with. I think in terms of practical skills to get through these uncertain times, having a routine that works for you, whether it's like a really strict kind of hour by hour routine, or maybe just a couple of to-do activities to get by the morning and then to do in the afternoon, are so important. Protecting your sleep as parents, I know it's tough, but I need 8 hours for sure. And I know I feel it if I don't. So know yourself, know what you need, and make sure you're carving that out as best as you can. And when it doesn't always work out, try to let go of the fact that maybe you didn't get your chance to do your little bit of self-care today, but try to build it in tomorrow. I think the hardest part right now is that parents are teachers, parents are doing everything for our kids, and it doesn't leave a lot of time or energy for ourselves. And if you are on the spectrum, your energy is often depleted already from just dealing with all the chaos and the needs of your environment. And so just really be kind to yourself. And if you need to take a break, like Janet said, put on a movie that the kids will like, or everybody watching on their own screens for a little bit of time. That's okay too. It's really about sort of trying to accept that things are different now, and just adapting day by day. And what I've noticed with the people I'm working with is that some people are starting to adapt to the new normal, and their lives feel okay again. And I want to give you hope that will happen to you guys too.
Thank you. It takes a little while to create new habits. But we're all trying to find our new normal during this time. So
I think what we've given everybody is permission to I have to give myself permission every day, multiple times a day, permission to not always keep it together, permission to just relax, permission to try to relax, permission to let them watch the screens, right? Like, you've got to do what you got to do right now.
Yeah, if you need to hear it from a developmental pediatrician, screen time has increased exponentially in my home.
So we have a magic wand here. The guilt fairy is self-isolating as well, so they can't visit you.
I think in addition to giving permission to let things go, with the screens and relax. Give yourself permission to feel stressed out. Like, it's okay to be stressed. And if you notice that that stress is tipping over, then lean on your support system, whether it's your own parent or a sibling or an online group that you've found a connection with, because you can really find other people who are relating to what you're going through right now and get support there.
So a lot of our parents have really active children, and the self-isolation is causing more anxiety for parents that have kids who need to be active. Are there ways that we can suggest to parents that they to provide an outlet for active children? I'll start with you, Janet, this time.
All right, I was actually on my way to unmute anyways. Of course, there's things that work and things that don't, so I'm going to run off a list. I've got a 3 and a 5-year-old with ADHD, both of them, so we are always active. We have I've basically baby-proofed the house, so everything went up in cupboards, everything is gone. There's as much floor space as possible so that they can move around. We do utilize outside when we can, but again, my kids will talk to everyone, so we've had to sort of keep them inside. Balloons, bubbles, bouncy balls, anything I can order from Amazon or already had in stock. We've done some really small experiments that can get really messy. Cornstarch and water all over the floor, because it's really actually easy to clean up afterwards if you let it dry. That's the key. They've had maybe 2 baths a day, not gonna lie. They like to be in the water. We'll alternate between bath and shower just to give it a different perspective. They're not into video games, and they can't sit very long in front of a screen, so that doesn't necessarily work too much, but we'll do dance parties. I'm not gaining weight, surprisingly. I'm losing it, so this has been working out for me. We will make messes in the sink. I'll have them do the dishes. You have to, I mean, you all know as parents with the kids that we have that messes are okay. Like, we have to actually get over that. Like, you know what, it's going to be messy. They're going to make a big mess. But if we can model like, oh, shoot, that's a big spill, let's clean it up. And just sort of allow for some, I mean, we know there's a limit. Let's not throw stuff all over the room. But if you can push the lines with what you're usually allowed to do at home, I found that they found it quite creative. We've also taken, I mean, I'm a little ridiculous. We will take all the clothes out of the drawer and throw them everywhere just so that there's stuff flying in the air. Of course, I have to clean it up later. I'm okay with that. But as long as I've distracted them maybe out of the cycle they're in the current moment, which was needing me, and really it was just stress and anxiety and boredom. It was movement that we could do in the house. Yeah, we did have to clean up more so after, and it's not something I'm going to do 3 months from now, but it is what I did yesterday. If you don't have quite so, I've got a whole list of activities for not so energetic kids, but that'll be another question, I'm sure. And run around. I let them run in the house. I mean, stairs, no, but I let them run around. Permission, guys. We're giving you.
Janet, that was a fantastic list. I mean, I can't come up with too much more than that. Other than there are some online things if that works for your kids. So there's an app called Go Noodle that some families have been using. There are like little videos on it to get your kids doing some physical activities. There are things on YouTube like Cosmic Kids Yoga if your kid is into that, and they have different themes that may appeal to some kids like Frozen or Pokemon. I do think there's so much value in getting outside, but only, of course, if you can do it safely. It's such a tough time for that right now, but we have found the days that we do manage to get outside, the sleep comes that much easier at the end of the day.
You guys already added such a fulsome list. I think the only thing that I would say is I also have kids who are very active and require this output. They need to get their energy out throughout the day. And I realize I'm starting to sound very much like a schedule pusher and kind of rigid, which I don't think I am, but I do find they help people. So we schedule our kids' movement breaks. at different times of the day. So we start the day with a movement break before they have to do any kind of schoolwork demands. We do a movement break again later in the morning, and then one in the afternoon as well. And I find it really helps with their focus and their energy and their mood. Also, we try to ride because we are on a street, we ride their bikes up and down and up and down, up and down, and they rollerblade. So they try to get out and do what they can. But the same thing, if my kids are not moving, the volume in the house is very, very loud. There's a lot more difficult behavior. And so I find that movement is really something can help regulate them and regulate me too. I try to work out almost every day to keep my mood afloat and to release some of that extra stress and anxiety.
When it comes to scheduling, for myself, I like to keep busy. I like to keep doing things. And so, but it's also things are changing a lot and anxieties are up and down. So I do, I practice something called flexible rigidity. I have things I want to do, that need to get done, but everything else that are that could get done, those are the things that can stretch. And I need to make those decisions sometimes on an hour by hour basis because, wow, I watch the news a lot, sometimes too much, and so it can affect me. But I'm also trying to help other people, so I kind of need to be in that space. So I find that sometimes I need to just drop what I'm doing, take a break, play a game, and then come back when I've had a chance for the anxiety of the moment to go down. Yeah, rigid schedules don't work well for me in times like this, where sometimes I live by schedules, I live by lists. One of the things that a lot of parents of tweens and teens are seeing their children struggling with depression, struggling with not being able to hang out with their friends, and really trying to figure out how to deal with kids that may not have had issues with before, that are all of a sudden really struggling. What can we suggest for them?
Here I am. I think the first thing and the most important thing to do is really normalize and validate how they're feeling. And you need to be able to notice too that something's different. So often some signs of depression for your kids, you might notice that they're more withdrawn, they're sleeping more or sleeping less. So you might notice a change in their appetite, or things that they used to get pleasure from, they're no longer experiencing pleasure from. I like to have like a one-on-one, if you can, try to carve out a bit of time with your child, separate from the other people in the household, and try to check in and see how they're doing and see if they'd be open to talking to you about it. Some kids who are not that comfortable talking might feel more comfortable texting. So you could try texting your child and see if they write back and what they have to say. When it comes to forming connections with kids, a lot of them might feel more comfortable face-to-face because that's what they're used to. And maybe they haven't been using social media platforms in the past to connect to their friends. So I would talk to them and say, well, who do you really miss? Who do you want to connect with? And we'll make a list of those friends. And then we'll say, okay, we can't see them. We can't invite them over, but what can we do? And together we'll come up with a list. We can text together, FaceTime, Snapchat, whatever it is. And then ask them, do you need any help connecting with your friends? Because some of them are really interested in being close with their friends, but struggle to make that first initiating step. And even once they initiate the chat, they might need help with what to say afterwards. So being there as a coach and being available to them is really helpful. And just being a good listening ear, and just really, like I said, validating. So saying, I understand what you're going through. It is tough to be separated from our friends. And this is a nice way we can stay in touch until then, and try to encourage them to come up with some creative ways to connect with their friends.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think I would also add, modeling how you're experiencing those feelings yourself and what you're doing as part of that validation. I think we've all probably had some low mood, some dark times over the past little while. So I think normalizing that. I would also add that many physicians like myself and other types of clinicians are doing telemedicine visits. So if you think that it's hitting a level where it's a bit more concerning, where you think that, you would like for them to have a professional to talk to, many of us are still here available so that we can help.
We are all on a really good sort of same page. Melanie, what you said about modeling is really important, especially when it comes to the low moods. Saying how you're feeling and maybe why, and just self-talk. So your children know that you are going through a process of sort of similar things, and they're not alone, and it's not weird, and it's not because they're autism, and it's just what we're dealing with right now. And Dori, what you said about social media, yeah, get them on TikTok, get them on Instagram. Make sure, of course, it's monitored and all that, but then they can see faces. I'm not trying to promote any sort of my business, but this is a free service that I have volunteers running, so it's volunteer. We have a platform where you can do interactive, take remote control games so that you're actually with a person, you can see them and you're playing something online to try to provide some sort of respite for families. Maybe, I'm sure Matthew will send you the link, but it's all free. So that is an option if you have kids that are able to sit in front of a computer and maybe you need someone else to play with them for a bit. It could be an online game that with someone you trust who's a professional from my postgrad program. I've got a dozen volunteers ready and waiting to engage with clients around Ontario. But yeah, however you can get, because as humans, we want that connection. All of us do. I've started baking with my kids. We watch a video, so we watch two other people baking with our kids, and then we try to emulate it, and it's hilarious sometimes, and then sometimes we make really good food. So we're trying to get that social input in ways that we've never had to do before, so you have to get pretty creative. And of course, you know, Zoom and however else we can video call the grandparents, at least those trusted family members that you know they have the connection with, just to provide that reassurance. It's not quite the same as face-to-face, but again, they can maybe self-talk their emotions too, and the fact that they really are missing them, and sometimes they feel, you know, like just really out of it and confused and bored and unhappy. I mean, I announce my mood the moment I come down the stairs, like today mom's pretty good, or today's mom's super grumpy, so you might want to take, you know, let me get my coffee. So I talk a lot if we haven't figured.
That's okay. So we're about to start going into questions from the audience. So again, if people in the audience, if you have some questions that you want to ask, just put them in the chat window. And if you want to ask them yourself, I'll call you in. And if not, I'll read the questions. One of the questions, we have a lot of professionals that have joined in, and some of the questions that they're asking are, how do we help clients at this time? How do we help when we're also going through this? Melanie, do you want to start?
Sure. You know, I will say for me, it has been in some ways therapeutic for me to feel like I can be a helper during this time. It's been really different though. There's I feel like some granularity that you lose by not being able to see people face to face anymore. Particularly, I'm finding the telephone calls really challenging. I do think, though, our usual clinical skill set still applies. So listening to families, what do you need right now? How can I help? Figuring things out together through shared decision making. You know, getting a good description of what's going on in their life and doing some creative problem solving together. I think what we've already sort of heard today is that all of us are sort of improvising on the fly, and we're generating these new ideas that I think are going to serve us well post-COVID as well. So it's tough, and it's more emotional labor, I think, but it also feels like it's a bit of different emotional labor than some of the other things that I've been dealing with. So it's been really grounding for me to be in touch with my clients and families.
I can jump in here. Melanie, I know what you're saying about the importance of being a helper. And I was thinking about my own mental health and how I've sort of been impacted by what's been going on so far, and knowing that I need to be strong and available for my clients has really helped me stay grounded, as you said. And and do self-care, because I'm not just looking after me. I'm not even just looking after my children, but I'm looking after my clients too, and I'm supporting them. And that responsibility is very important to me. And so it's actually, I think, really helped me during this time. I know I talked to one client who lost her job, and she said she's lost her sense of purpose. And I'm very passionate about my work, and so helping people is my sense of purpose. So for me, I'm very fortunate that I can continue working with families during this time. Another thing is that I run a free monthly support group for women on the spectrum called AsperFem, and we've transitioned to a Zoom model. So now we're running our monthly support meetings so they can support one another that way. And we also have our Facebook group where they're supporting each other. And I do find that when I'm talking to clients, I'm hearing about what's working for them, and I'm able to share their stories anonymously with other clients and saying, you know what, this worked for one person, this might really work for you too. So it's nice that we can pool those resources together. And so that's really how I get through. I think I'm an optimist by nature, and I am hopeful, and I bring that hope into my work, and that helps me get by.
I completely relate. I'm a bit of an overachiever, to be honest, hence the volunteer program that I threw together in 24 hours. But I've been limited, like everyone else, to being able to do everything and anything that I can for my clients, and adjusting to the online format is been different. I have also had to really reel myself in to spend that extra time, as you can tell by how messy my house may be, with the kids, just letting loose and trying to keep my own mood up. I find if I'm not busy, I feel less happy. I'm learning that I can slow down and find happiness in this less busy environment. But like Dori mentioned, I'm really just listening to everybody I can, and I'm trying to gather all the resources and give all the advice that I can to clients. I can't go and play with my friends. I can't go and sit and school my friends. I can't. So we've come up with really creative ways to try to do that. But also, I'm supporting parents more so lately than my clients, because you guys have taken up the slack for what service providers do, and because of our presence so often in the past, in some scenarios, may be affecting your confidence in your role as parents right now. And so I've been, while I'm boosting myself up as a parent, been trying to be extra supportive to the other parents out there that, you know, this isn't our normal, this isn't our kids' normal, and we're all sort of trying to figure out this new normal, but reassuring them that, you know, these are your babies, these are, you will relearn them, you will learn them more, you will go up and down with them, and out of all of this, you'll actually have a stronger relationship because you've gone through these up and downs together because you've been forced. So it's I'm trying to stay very optimistic as well and say, look, like, my kids will look back on this time and think of all the fun things, and not necessarily the times I lost my cool and I yelled a lot, or the times that I just told them all to go away and I need my space. They'll remember that I was here for them through this time. I'm mom. That's my role, and the reconnecting thing is like what I'm trying to hold on to.
Thank you. We have a question from the audience now. Sherry, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, so I am a child development specialist, and I specialize in the PLAY project, which is an early intervention for children with autism ages 0 to 6. And so the one thing that I'm having difficulty with, and you may hear my kids in the background, is I, like Janet, have 4 children, 3 or 6-year-old triplets, and 1 is 9-year-old. They all have neurodiversity. So Elijah is autistic. He has sensory processing and ADHD. Okay, so what I'm struggling with is, you know, one day here is really great. Today is a great day. Yesterday, literally could have driven us like off the bridge. Like, it was bad. It was really bad. So what I'm struggling with is, because my practice it needs to have their children up. I can do it virtually, but it's during workday hours. It's during daytime hours. So how do you, I don't want to overcommit to my clients because they really need my assistance right now. They're desperate for any kind of help. But how do I manage that family piece and not worrying about, I hear them screaming, I hear them yelling at any given time. They're all boys. So at any given time, they could be, you know, like literally abusing each other badly. So how do you find that? Like, that's where I'm struggling with, of, I don't want to overcommit with my clients because I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to find the time, and I don't want to cancel because that may be the one call or the one thing in that day where that parent is looking forward to, and they're just hanging on to that date. Not that I'm special, but that somebody else is coming in to give them some sort of relief, some sort of help. So how do you manage that?
Melanie, you want to start?
Wow, Sherry, kudos to you for juggling all of that. I don't know that I have a great answer for you. Something that I have thought about in my house is whether we can set up different, so we have a morning meeting over breakfast and everyone sort of talks about what they need to do during the day. I've thought about color coding our times. So these are times when, you know, I am here, we are hanging out. Maybe that's green. Yellow is, I'm supposed to be doing something, but, you know, if you need help with something, you can come find me. Red is like an emergency. And for us, because I'm in a 2-parent household, the kind of interplay between those times would sort of give you a cue as to who to get at that point. Now, if they can sort of help each other out, maybe in those yellow times, it's like, you know, first ask your brother for help, and then if they can't, then I can. And ideally, you would want to schedule as few of those red kind of emergency only times during the day. And I think we've all gotten, thanks to the BBC guy from South Korea, I think we've all gotten a little bit more used to kids sort of blasting into our Zoom backgrounds. Thank you, Matthew. And so I think we're all trying to be a bit more gracious with each other too when these interruptions occur. Our whole lives are an interruption right now.
I love the green, yellow, red idea. I think that's great. Kids are familiar with the stoplight. I would just add to that what Melanie is saying, that the families you're working with, they're in the same boat as you are, right? So if you tell them at the beginning of the call, I might get interrupted, my kids might call me, just so that you're creating that expectation from the beginning. The other thing is that I know, like, we've been more flexible at my practice in terms of our session length. So we always used to do an hour, and now it's kind of like whatever works for the client family, right? So if you say, okay, I can give you 15 minutes here, and then we can check in again 15 minutes tomorrow, then maybe that's the way to go. So really, I think this is where we need to be a bit more flexible and creative, because Sherry, what you're trying to do is, I don't want to say impossible, but it's a huge challenge for you, right?
It feels impossible, you know, and I'm trying to have realistic expectations for myself, for my kids. Being a multiple mom and a mom of kids who have special needs, I was working with kids with disabilities way before any of that happened, right? So it's always easier with other people's children than it is with mine. But I just think I love that giving them that anticipation of, listen, you know what, I am home alone. We could be interrupted, because I think other people are far more gracious with my children than probably I am, right? So I love that, setting it up for the families of, we might be interrupted, and if we are, this is what we'll do, and this is how we'll reschedule. I think that's really big. And I think setting realistic goals is the only thing that's going to get me through, for sure. So thank you.
And Sherry, you provide early intervention. Is it possible to do it sort of like my family and your family, sort of change the whole dynamic of what your sessions look like? Like, you could bring your kids in and do something with your kids while they are doing something with their kids at the same time?
Yeah, actually, the nice part about Play, I don't know how many people have heard of Play Project. It's built off of Greenspan's DIR model by Dr. Solomon. The nice part about that intervention is I'm really fortunate because a lot of it is done by video. Typically, the consultant is in the house videoing the family and modeling and coaching. So the coaching part will be up, the modeling part not so much, but that's a really good idea of modeling with my own kids if they cooperate.
Yeah, that's what I've done too. I did a lot of RDI. I mentored under an RDI, so it was a similar setup. So I've been modeling with my kids for as long as I can remember. I have clients will Zoom. I put two. I set up two while my kids are doing our homeschool, so that it's actually 4 of them. They're all different grades, but we do our mock homeschool all together, so that if I need to model, then it's 4 birds, whatever we can do to, and plus your kids will love doing it with you, right?
Yeah, they're little actors, so they would actually, do their schoolwork without fighting me for 10 hours. So that's a good idea, really good idea.
So we've talked about younger kids and active kids. We've talked about teens, but there's many parents that have adult children that are home with them that have different challenges. How do we help them cope with their loss of the routines, their access to the services and the workers and the friends that they have in the community?
Is it my turn?
Sure, I was about to say, Janet, you start.
Okay, because I'm also an adult and I've lost touch with all those things too. TikTok has made me laugh more than anything in my whole life right now. I'm not sure why. I don't recommend drinking after work. I've been doing that too. What is something that is actually helpful? I guess increasing that special time and they're adults. That self-talk, that modeling, that connecting on the, yeah, I'm really pissed I can't go to work. I'm really mad that I can't see my friends. I miss leaving the house. Being completely real about it, it's not going to necessarily take it away, but it does validate the fact that those feelings are going through everybody's head. Let's do something silly. Let's have a dress-up day today and come out as animals. And we'll make, really just from TikTok, these ideas come from TikTok because they do some wild stuff on there and it's really hilarious. So finding ways to laugh, doing, oh gosh, a puzzle. I like puzzles. Not everybody likes puzzles. These sound really simple, but when you're drinking, they're way more fun. Without drinking, right. Reconnecting, just, not being the friend, but they're adults, so you can go there. It's an adult relationship. You can be honest about what really is going on and be creative. Melanie or Dori both said that. Be creative in what the solutions are. Problem solve together. Figure it out. But you have to put that time in, right, to really try to get there rather than I say you do, I say you do. It's a different dynamic.
Matthew, I'm glad you used the word grief and loss, because I do find that a lot of the adults that I work with, there is a sense of grief about this life, especially for people who are working towards goals. There's a number of people I've been working with who have finally been building and building and building their lives and getting out of the house and being able to go and ask for something at a restaurant, and all of those opportunities are now taken away from them, and it feels as if they're back where they started from. And I think that could be really, really difficult. So I often just normalize that in terms of it is so hard that you're experiencing this loss and what it meant to you to be able to do those things. And then how can we look towards the future where you can do that again? I think there's a fear of reintegration back into the world with everyday demands again. They're fearful that they're not going to be able to do the things that they used to do. So going back to building blocks and what are the small steps that got you there before that led to your achievement, and how can you do that again? I also try to use with adults either something like BASES or MAPS, which are basically just acronym to try to get 4 key things in the day, whether it's behavior, like around self-care, like taking a shower, setting the table, connection, so making a connection maybe with their worker from somewhere that they used to work with, doing a FaceTime with them, or connection with a friend, helping out with someone around the house, choose one thing they can do to help others. I'm sorry, I'm not getting the acronyms right at the moment, but there are some good ones that just can help guide people to keep their goals in check and to help them feel good about what they're going through. Again, routines are really helpful, creating new routines, implementing structure, because that can be really hard. Many people on the spectrum thrive with structure, but struggle to implement it themselves. So helping people with that piece of accountability and encouragement with creating a realistic structure. And then helping them connect in ways that's meaningful for them. So getting on Discord maybe and chatting with friends, or gaming that way, just so they can have a little piece of their life that was like before, and a smaller version of that at home.
I love that idea of kind of co-creating goals together. I think that's a lovely way to build in a bit of structure, and then I would say, yeah, co-creating those routines together, because I think that kind of that imposition of this strict routine is sort of, yeah, is not going to work. And I don't think that you were saying that, Dori, but like kind of this idea of like, let's build this together, so that we're getting the things that you want to do, you know. And this could, think when you're ready, I think when in that grief stage, think about like, what are there opportunities during this time? You know, could we take something like an online course about photography, or painting, or something like that? Is there kind of a an interest that I can help you lean into during this time, as well? But I think that those grief emotions are very real, and it may not be something you can sort of do immediately.
Thank you. I have one more question from the audience that I'll ask, and I'll direct it to you, Melanie, and then we'll wrap up the session so that we can end it at 2:00. So the question we have from the audience: my wife feels our 4-year-old son is regressing, losing his skills, language, etc. How do we best maintain his development at this time? Thank you.
So this is a tough one, and it's what we, I think, worry about when we know that there are kids who are particularly early on in their developmental course who are perhaps losing access to some of those types of therapies that they had access to before. So I think that it's important to recognize the impact of the change, and that certainly autistic kids with other neurodevelopmental disorders, you know, change is extra hard to process. And so it may be a very natural reaction to look like skills are regressing a bit. I would say to give it a bit of time before getting too worried about it, as we all sort of adjust to this. I would also say that if your child was in some sort of therapy program, a lot of places are starting to pivot to try to deliver things electronically. And so checking in with any clinicians you've been involved with to see if there's anything that's going on. I think there's also a lot of places now that are trying to pilot new telemedicine-based programs, and a lot of them are being offered for free right now. So checking out what's available for those I think is another option as well. It's definitely not an easy situation to be in, to be coping with that on top of, you know, all of the other things that we've been dealing with. But my overall suggestion is be patient. Let this new situation settle a little bit, and connect with your clinicians.
Thank you, Melanie. So we're going to wrap up things right now, and I'll just ask each of the panelists to just briefly wrap up their own thoughts about this and thoughts moving forward. And then again, if the panelists can stay on, if any of them can stay on after, we'll continue, because there's a few questions that are being popped up. Otherwise, we'll I'll be sending an email out tomorrow with the link to this, as well as some of the resources that we've talked about, and anything else that the panelists can send me, as well as their contact information. So I'll start with you, Melanie, if you want to wrap up your thoughts here.
Sure. So I'm going to shamelessly borrow from the OT on our team named Moira, who talks about creating islands of retreat in your home. And I think we think about that as being for, you know, our neurodivergent kids, but I think it can apply to their caregivers and siblings as well. So how do you create your own time and space at home so that everyone can recharge their batteries, and it's okay to not feel okay during this time?
Thank you. Janet?
Melanie, you covered it. Build on your relationship. Maybe change focus. Not necessarily think of what they're losing, what their academics are, what they're anything. Think of what you can do, and that is reconnect and relearn each other, because guaranteed they're at a different age than we've ever had a pandemic before, right? So, you know, give yourself that purpose to be like, oh, I'm going to get to know 5-year-old you. We're really going to get to know 5-year-old you. Or, hey, you're 11. I'm going to get to know 11-year-old. That's my goal right now. If we can set an actual reasonable goal, then maybe it'll sort of change the focus that, we're stuck here. I've got something else to do. That's what I tell myself. So I am sharing it with you. And laugh. I try.
And Dori?
Final last words. Thank you, everybody, for listening today. It looks like we had a lot of people stay right to the end, which is wonderful. That shows that this was actually applicable and meaningful to their lives. So that's great. In terms of taking care of yourselves, I think, again, just give yourself permission to acknowledge that this is a difficult time, that life cannot possibly be like it was before. You couldn't possibly achieve everything you wanted to, and you can't be perfect in every sphere of your life. And I know letting go of that is difficult, but it's necessary in order to accept that this is our new reality and to try to adjust yourself to meet those needs and the parameters that are there. So thank you. That's it. Oh, just one final plug, actually. Matthew or I mentioned my practice, Dori Zener and Associates. So we are doing online and phone therapy right now. We have therapists who work with children, adolescents, adults, individuals, couples, families, and parent support. So just check out dorizener.com for more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Dori. Just to wrap things up and give you a visual, just remember, everybody, the guilt fairy is self-isolating too. You don't need to feel as guilty as you normally would. This is a different time, a different place, and we're all managing, struggling each day, but we're going to get through it. And it just take the time you need for yourself so that you can take the time that your kids need from you. All right. So if any of the panelists want to stay on, that's great. If not, I think Dori, you said that you needed to leave because you got another client. Thank you very much for all of you. You guys can stay on for a bit if you want to. You guys can drop off. I do appreciate everybody for coming in here, and I hope this has helped. So Melanie and Janet, are you able to stay on for a bit?
Yeah, I can't hear the kids, so that's good, right?
Yes.
Or very bad.
Yeah, no. They're with an adult.
That's
fine.
very
totally
good.
Totally fine. Sorry, I'm a bit of a comedian sometimes. I'm not a doctor, Melanie. No, not that you're not funny. Shoot. Okay, I'm all done with that.
This moment was brought to you by the word awkward. It's the awkward.
That's how I make everyone else laugh.
Okay. So for this point here, if people want to ask questions, there's an ability in Zoom to raise your hand, and I will, if I see your hand raised, I will ask questions. Janet, you just figured out how to raise a hand. All right, Suzelle, you have your hand raised. Go ahead, unmute yourself and ask away.
Oh my God, guys. I was like, I thought I wouldn't make it. I planned for this day to go well. Homeschooling was crazy, so I didn't end up exiting at the time I supposed to. It was 1 o'clock, 1:30, and I was like, oh my God, I'm missing everyone. it was one of those days, as Melanie said, that it's okay to say you're not okay. I thought I was gonna like pass out because the school boards keep popping you with all this information and the systems are not working online for the kids. So I end up teaching them about the law of gravity and putting a video of astronauts in the space, and that's it. Because at this point, we have to really process the fact that this is not like a regular time. And I'm having hard times, as you know, Matthew, because I do very much um, exactly what you do, as you are also a computer programmer. So I was hearing Cherry talking, and I was like, I don't know how I manage. I live in a very small dollhouse. We have 4 children, and yesterday I got everyone upstairs, and then for a meeting that I had, a radio show. And now today I was not able, so I'm in the room in my bed. I have Emily actually drawing on the floor, but I was like, how am I gonna do this? And she goes, Mommy, you have to tell them you have kids. I'm like, they all know pretty much. But it was one of those examples in where I really wanted to be present in the panel, in the conference, and I was not able to do it because I was living exactly what you guys were speaking about. So I apologize for that, but I guess after I read your notes, Matthew, I'm gonna be able to catch up for a little bit. Hopefully we can do this once again. I think mental health is something that we need to touch base. One of the things that I wanted to mention is that um, I think, Matthew, we should discuss uh, some of the challenges that are presented for families that are racialized and minority groups in this time. These are families that are sometimes not spoken about. They're living in very crowded places. They have children that are youth and adolescents and adults too. They don't know what to do, where to go. And many of them, even though they have internet and maybe computer assistants, they don't know how to maneuver, you know, this programs such as Zoom and things like that. So they're very much in isolation. So I'm thinking my heart goes to them, and the parents that are really struggling to keep the kids, you know, in a happy mojo while all this is happening, right? Because it's really hard. I can see it. I'm right in the middle of the storm, North York, and the families are not having fun. And I'm surprised we haven't got ambulance around taking parents to the hospital because they're going nuts. We live in an area that there are families that have from 4 to 6 children or more. It's that, you know, different cultures, Middle Eastern, Asian cultures, Hispanic. Well, I guess I'm the only Cuban with 4, but and it's really crazy because this is very tiny places and there's not a lot that you can do. Also because the spread here is major in this zone, so we do have to take care. So it's messing up with the mental health of many parents. I'm still saying, but I have to myself support parents that are, you know, going through this, and it's very hard when I have to deal with my own children. So yeah, it's one of those things. So I just wanted to say that thank you very much for, you know, for offering your views today. And Melanie, this is the first time I'm seeing you, but I know one of your colleagues, Dr. Jessica Bryan. Say hi. Yes, we know her for many, many years. And Janet, it's a pleasure to meet you too.
Thank you.
So,
One thing
yeah.
you mentioned was about caregivers and parents living in small places, and one of the other participants asked a question that I'll pose to the panelists again. Does anyone have any advice for caregivers who are living in small, restrictive spaces, especially for those with active children? Oh,
I guess.
Sherry wants to add in as well, so I'll let you add. I'll let all 3 of you.
Sorry, this has been part of my field as being an OTA, working with in a clinic for sensory integration. So we have to get really, really creative because not everybody has a backyard. Not everybody has a big house. And so it's really tough, but you need to look at things that are so simple. So the three biggest areas that when we want to look at is our vestibular sense, our proprioceptive sense, and our tactile. And basically vestibular and proprioceptive, it's like the Mac Daddy and the little daddy, they work together so well. So you want to have movement. I really loved, I think it was Janet who had said that she scheduled movement breaks as part of her day. And that is one of the biggest things. So you want to use movement before behavior, right? So we want to catch that behavior, or we want to catch those kids. And if you want them to do their online schoolwork or just a task that you guys have decided to do, get that movement out first before you try and do any type of a task that you know is going to be a bit of a fight. But with small spaces, you can just be creative. So wrap your child up in a blanket and then unroll them quickly. That hits tactile, that hits proprioceptive sense, which is your muscles and joints, knowing where they are together. And that hits vestibular, of getting that inner ear moving. So you can do something like that. Our couch is now destroyed. I had to come to terms with that, and it's okay. We allow the kids to jump on our couch. We will pull a mattress off the bed and put it in the living room, and just have them jump from the couch to the mattress and crashing. You want to get lots of crashing in, and wrestling. I know we always teach our kids to keep hands off, and I'm still trying to get my kids not to punch each other, but the hands-on is actually good. So some of that one-on-one movement that would be good is, let's say for me, it's 4 kids, right? So 3 of them are busy doing something, and I'll take one into my bedroom and I will throw him on the bed and I'll tickle him, and then I'll pause and I'll pull him towards me. So just kind of knowing, or if you have a computer chair or any chair that swivels, have him or her spin himself in the computer chair. Let them spin themselves. You don't spin them. They need to know. You don't want to get them too dizzy or whatnot, or maybe they could spin forever and not get dizzy. So let the child determine that. Sorry, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Oh, okay, good. So that would be another one. The Just Dance, like Janet was messaging, and me too, we are living on Just Dance. That is great movement. So you just throw it on your TV or a laptop, whatever you got, and start doing that way. So there's lots of small indoor activities that you can do and that you can still get the same impact. You might not be able to do it all at once. The whole family might not be able to do it together if your room is too small. And there's a great resource online called the OT Toolbox. If you Google that, there's tons of great ideas on there that you could adapt to be in your home. So, and if you need any more kind of OT type questions in terms of that sensory integration and movement, Matt has my information and he can hook you up with me.
I have to agree with everything Sherry said. I did a lot of brain gym and floor time and a lot of other stuff. Like I've tried to learn everything over the years. And something my older clients, I have balance boards in my house. I don't know if there's a way to sort of rig up something, but if they can stand and rock back and forth while they read or while they talk to you or whatever, it works on those same systems that Sherry mentioned. You can even turn it the other way, sideways, so they're going forward and back, because it is all vestibular. I hope I got that right, Melanie. Did I get that right? Vestibular. It's been a while. And even just jumping in place. I mean, my teenage clients and my teenage friends, they don't really want to do some of the really fun stuff that the little kids want to do, but getting those systems to move because they've been sitting for so long is important. So even just walking backwards, and then, I mean, if I do it with them, they'll still do it because, they like somebody who will play, but a balance board or any sort of way to get off and get the system working will help too.
Those are fantastic suggestions. I think I would summarize all of it by saying, turn off your interior decorator. Forget about all of those conscious decor decisions you made, and deconstruct that couch, pull the mattress where you need to, you know, make it a crash pad, pillows in the bathtub, whatever it sort of takes to get that input that people need, and to keep the space safe still.
Thank you. I'm going to read another comment we got in the chat window here. As a single parent of 4, I have 2 ideas to add. One is I find that if I can give the kids even 10 minutes of one-on-one time, they're less demanding of my attention overall, and it makes scheduling work from home time a little bit easier. And to Just Dance on YouTube is so fun to do with kids of all ages. Yes. And karaoke for those who like to sing. Yes.
Yeah, that's why I picked a song specifically for each of my kids. Mine are little, so I can still pick them up and snuggle them, but they each have the song, and I will play it when they're off doing their stuff and I actually need the connection. I'll put it on, and whoever song it is now comes running to me, and we actually consciously breathe and regulate together for that 3 to 4 minutes, and I'll just sort of sing or I'll whisper really sweet things to reassure myself, but also know that this is good for both of us. And then all of a sudden, I don't hear mom quite as much for the rest of the day. It's a small thing that goes a long, long way.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from people in the audience? Okay, well, I thank you very much for participating in this. It's been great, and I'm hoping that the participants, as well as us, the panelists, have gotten a lot out of it. Some really good suggestions for how we can keep our anxieties at bay, help our kids with their anxieties, as well as the practical things that we can do with our kids during this time. So again, this will be posted on my website tomorrow. We'll have an email going out with some follow-up contact information, as well as some list of resources that have been talked about today. And again, I really do appreciate you all for participating, and thank you to my panelists for sticking out and being part of this.
Thank you for organizing and hosting, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew, very much.
All right. Well, have a good day, guys, and keep safe.